A mysterious young man captivated the Seattle area between the years 2008 and 2010 because of the peculiar way he committed his crimes. Each time he struck, the event was broadcasted on all local news stations. This is the case of the Barefoot Bandit. Colton Harris Moore was born on March 22, 1991, to neglectful parents. His mother and father were both alcoholics. His father was also a drug addict and spent most of Colton's childhood in prison. His mother noted something off about Colton when he started the first grade, stating that there was a disconnect as he would start fights deliberately and would not listen to his teachers. During a psychiatric evaluation, Moore stated that it was his alcoholic mother who would break his things during episodes. This would become a breaking point for Colton as he had had enough. At the age of about 7 or 8, Colton finally ran away from home. But he didn't go to a relative or find a shelter. Instead, he started living in the wild. He would survive by breaking into nearby homes, stealing food, water, clothes, blankets, all to keep himself warm and fed. Thus began his life of crime. On July 4, 2006, a warrant was issued for his arrest when he failed to appear in court. Realizing that he was now a wanted criminal, Colton fled. He then continued with what he was good at, burglarizing homes for essentials. He found that many of these homes that he broke into, he was able to gain access to computers. Colton began to access banking information and started teaching himself how to steal identities. He would open new credit cards in the homeowner's name and would make lofty purchases like high-tech night vision goggles and other things that allowed him to stay several steps ahead of the police, who were right on his tail. He was finally captured on February 9, 2007, pleading guilty to 23 cases of criminal charges. Colton was able to make a deal with prosecutors that if he pled guilty to 3 of the charges, he would have a reduced sentence of 3 years in a juvenile detention facility in Chehalis, Washington. He was then released from the facility on grounds of good behavior and being a model inmate, and transferred to a minimum security halfway home. This facility was mainly used for youths to transition back into society. Although this was just a ruse concocted by Colton so he'd have a better chance of escaping. On April 29, 2008, that's exactly what happened. He had escaped through an unlocked window, and when authorities found out about this, they immediately issued a felony warrant for his arrest. Colton continued his MO of breaking and entering homes for food and other supplies, although this time, police had him on their radar. Local news stations also picked up the story about a child fugitive. Then, on July 18, 2008, everything changed. Colton became the center of attention after sheriff's deputies in Camano Island, Washington, chased a black Mercedes driving recklessly. The driver jumped out of the car and ran into the woods. Police searched his car and found an assortment of cell phones, credit cards, and a digital camera where the perpetrator took selfies. This now iconic photo was plastered all over local news channels, online and in public. This alone blew up immediately, as Colton, now dubbed the Barefoot Bandit, as almost all his crimes were done barefoot or he would leave footprints behind, had amassed an online fan base. People wanted to be in the know of all his crimes and follow the stories that news channels put out. Seeing his name all over and unable to escape the media, Colton decided to escape Camano Island and make his way to nearby Orcas Island, Washington. Not long after, the police started receiving calls from residents about multiple break-ins, which caused the citizens to be vigilant and report suspicious activity. Eventually, things got so bad that the city had to have a meeting to discuss what the next steps would be to mitigate the issue. This resulted in police increasing their efforts to catch whoever was responsible for these break-ins. With each passing day, suspicion grew more and more to Colton Harris Moore. Colton got to know about these search efforts and was always one step ahead of the police. Deciding to escape Orcas Island, Colton broke into a small airplane hangar and stole a small Cessna 182. With no flying experience whatsoever, Colton managed to take off from the island, but crash-landed 300 miles east on the Yakima Indian Reservation. Before authorities got to know about this, he escaped. When police searched the plane, they found his trademark, his footprints, all over. Following this incident, Colton began to steal cars all over Nevada and California before making his way back to Washington. In this time, the authorities were filing charges against him for identity theft and evading the police. Upon his return to Camano Island, he broke into a patrol car that was parked in front of the deputy's home and stole phones, ammunition, and other police equipment. The police kept ramping up their search efforts, but Colton managed to stay several steps ahead, successfully evading police. All throughout the year 2009, he continued his pattern of thievery and escaping. He continued to steal boats and planes and started island hopping in the northern areas of Washington state. He had stolen several airplanes, primarily Cessnas, cars, speedboats, and eventually became a prime suspect of over 100 thefts. One day, Colton then burglarized a local grocery store in Anacortes. He took some chalk and started drawing feet that went all around the store. Like his nickname, the footprints led to a single message, taunting those who were on his trail, reading, "See ya." After this, the FBI, Homeland Security, and local police departments were dispatched to Orcas Island, along with the Coast Guard. They deployed several teams equipped with boats and helicopters to find Colton. When he was known to have been island hopping from San Juan Island to Orcas Island, then back home to Camano Island, the FBI placed a $100,000 reward for information leading to his capture. Finding out about this, Colton fled, but not before leaving a note and $100 at a local vet clinic. This note read, "Drove by, had some extra cash. Please use this money for the care of animals. Colton Harris Moore, aka the Barefoot Bandit." Then, in June 2010, knowing about the heavy police presence in Washington, with almost every jurisdiction on lookout, Colton fled. In a series of stolen vehicles, he made his way to Indiana. It's speculated that Colton's destination was Canada due to its lack of extradition treaties with the US. After stealing another airplane, he made his way to the Bahamas, crash landing it into a nearby village. He survived the next few days by stealing from local stores and restaurants. On July 11, 2010, Colton Harris Moore was captured with the help from local residents. Colton planned to escape but crashed a boat into a sandbar and became stuck, unable to get to shore. After much negotiation and back and forth, Colton surrendered to the authorities. 2 days later, he was extradited from Nassau, Bahamas to Miami, Florida, from which he was transferred to Seattle and was booked into the Federal Detention Center in SeaTac, Washington. By the end of his crime spree, he was charged with interstate transportation of a stolen aircraft, interstate and foreign transport of a stolen gun, interstate transport of a stolen boat, bank robbery, flying a plane without a pilot's license, attempting to elude, being a fugitive in possession of a gun, burglary, identity theft, and motor vehicle theft. He was sentenced to 7 years of state prison time and another 6 by the Island County Court. After that, he was brought to the Federal District Court in Seattle, where he was sentenced to another 6 years in prison. During closing arguments, Colton expressed remorse for his actions, stating that he has plans to become an aeronautical engineer. His sentences were all combined, and he was moved over to the Aberdeen Correctional Facility to begin his 6-year sentence. Colton's story just doesn't end there, though. His mother passed away from lung cancer in 2016, but he had set up a GoFundMe account in an effort to raise funds to have her body cryogenically frozen to save her. He had failed to reach this goal, and the account has since been deleted. On September 2, 2016, Colton was transferred to a halfway house near Seattle, and he took up a clerical job assisting his defense attorney, John Henry Brown. He then started another GoFundMe page in an effort to raise $125,000 to pay for flight school. Additionally, after being sentenced, he sold his life story for $1.4 million, but never saw a dime, as all of that went to paying his restitution. This fundraiser was halted due to the fact that Colton still owed his victims $129,000. Until that was paid back, the fundraiser could not continue. After completing his sentence and probation and staying out of trouble from the law, he had agreed to several interviews, reflecting on his time stealing planes and cars, and detailing how he felt through the entire experience. Once telling his story to the world, Colton deleted his social media presence and has since gone recluse. His current whereabouts are unknown. However, you can still find him on Twitter, where he apparently is still active.